Robots are coming, but when? We see demos every day. There got to be a million companies working on it. Okay, more like 100 serious ones. If only there was someone who knew a few things about robots who could tell me. So I'm being joined today by my good friend Scott Walter, robotics expert. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futurasa.
Hello,
Scott,
Brian.
so good to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be back on.
Yeah. So the big question, robots when?
Now, they're already here. Now, of course, you want to know, wait, and I'm not talking about your Roombas, and I'm not talking about those little Kivas that are at Amazon. I'm not talking about those industrial robots, right? You want me to, you're explicitly talking about the humanoid bots. When are they here? When are they going to come here? And you know what? Same answer.
Same answer.
They're already
so they
here.
come in different capacities. They come in different capacities. Some are smaller than others. Some are more dexterous than others. What is already on the market?
Okay, well, I mean, the main thing is that, as you know, Agility has a bot called Digit, and they've been doing a lot of pilots with companies like GXO and with Spanx and also with Amazon. And they announced that, they've already been doing useful work, which means it's not just a pilot sitting there demonstrating can do, it's actually getting something done. And they've been doing some work with a company called Spanx, which I think has something to do with women's wear of some sort. And they've been filling in the logistics there. And yesterday they announced that they are in production there, being used in production as a robot as a service.
Those are the agility robots.
Digit bots. Yeah. And pretty much they're taking totes off of shelves and bringing them over and putting them on the conveyors. So, a humanoid bot is actually being used in production officially. Now, we've heard rumors about a lot of other companies, Tesla's doing something internally, but we haven't seen it except, what's going in the battery line. We don't know whether that's like doing a full day of production, but I think we can comfortably say it's going on there. We've also seen some examples of Chinese bots either doing pilots or very close to getting production with that going on. So it's going to be a question of definitions. A lot of people say, yeah, we're seeing all these demos. What we really mean is like, when the bot's going to start doing real productive work? And I guess you can say we're starting to actually see them doing that. So this is the year where it begins. And next year is the year where it accelerates.
So Figure is demoing with BMW. Is that right?
Correct. It's not in production yet, but they've demonstrated something. I think, you can go through the list. All of them have done some sort of demonstrations and pilots with everyone else. But it's not like, okay, they're really going in and doing 8-hour shifts, except for Digit, and which is the bot from Agility. They're really, and they pretty much did it last December because they had a labor shortage at Spanx. They couldn't find enough people to fill the roles. And Agility said, we'll come in and do it. And they were able to demonstrate they did it. And now there's the state, they're like, yep, this is like a permanent thing. This is not a seasonal thing. We're going ahead and we're going to do it.
That is insane. That is frankly insane. I've got a fast-paced environment and I am short on people. Hey, real quick, could I just give you some help? I've got some actual working robots. We'll send some engineers with to make sure that they're actually doing the thing right. And you said bots as a service. Do you think we're going to see more bots sold or rented?
I think it's robot as a service at first. That's what we expected. A lot of customers want that because they're not quite sure how the bots are going to operate. There's still some teething pains going on there. So for instance, the bots are not commingled yet with the other employees. So they do have to cordon them off a little bit. So it's an area that the bots are kind of working and then the people are going to be somewhere else until they get the certification. And you're probably another 18 months to 2 years away before that really comes into full focus for a lot of them. Part of it is not just that they need to go through the certification process, but because there's no standards yet. They're still working on the standards to try to get that. So the same thing like with what you saw with the Figure bot, they had to kind of cordon that thing off to demonstrate what's going on. You're going to have the same thing going on with the Tesla bot. So none of them are quite there yet, but it doesn't mean they're not already able to do the work. And again, they want to do it as a robot as a service for a couple of reasons. One is the vendors, they want to get that valuable data. That helps them. They're going to do all the maintenance and everything else, but they're charging an hourly rate, and the hourly rate they're charging is commensurate with the rate that you would have for a normal worker. And so that's like, oh, okay, then that's useful.
It's pennies right now, but it's something. This is great because, and I understand why they have to quarantine them I don't want a robot, bumping into my workers, stealing my lunches, dating our women. It's not time yet. And as a service, it's better because the customer gets peace of mind that this machine, if it breaks, forget warranty. It's like when the pop machine breaks, the guy comes and fixes it. If the pop machine dies, he replaces it. And you know that the software is going to continue being supported, because if it doesn't, you stop paying. And it's also great because it costs less. And if you're starting out this way, it's not like you're trying to deploy 5 million of them and you don't have the capital. You're deploying 10 and then 100 and then 1,000. And you can use that ongoing revenue to fund additional growth. I can see how that makes sense. And and it's not a big financial commitment from the part of the customer. If it doesn't work, send it back. Just cancel it. And that's crazy. It's wonderful because, especially when it comes to, there have been a number of instances in the last 10 years where fields went unharvested because there was no labor at any price willing to go out in 95-degree weather to harvest the tomatoes or whatever it might be. And it's seasonal. You can move them around as needed.
Right.
So I can see value in that. How many of the bots are we seeing that are available today that don't have some kind of AI that require, like, if you look at Spot from Boston Dynamics, that's been available for a long time, but you needed to know how to code to make it do anything. What kind of AI integration, what kind of command system do these have, these early humanoid bots?
Right now, they're still in the training phase, which means there's a lot of telerobotic operation and there's engineers behind the scenes that are supporting it. Eventually, it's going to come down to, when you really have it, you will either explain to the bot what you want to have done, or you'll kind of demonstrate it and show it, oh, I want you to do this. But what you'd be doing is basically showing it a lot of tasks that maybe it already knows how to do. So it already knows how to grab a bottle. It already knows how to place a bottle. It already knows how to pick up a knife. It already knows how to cut a tomato or something like that. And all you're doing is just showing that these are the kinds of operations you want to put together. Very much like an LLM. The assumption is that when you have an LLM, it already understands the English language. It only understands the words of the English language. And it's going to be a little bit trickier to teach it, say, something new that's not in its vocabulary. So you have a vocabulary of motions that's able to go along in there, and it's going to either understand it one of two ways. One is that you say what it is you want it to do, or you kind of show it what you want it to do, and it goes, oh, okay, I get the idea, and I'll go ahead and do that. So that's the end goal on how they're going to be. They're not there yet. They're getting closer and closer. And again, they will kind of learn these routines and be able to kind of pull them up as necessary. So there's, let's say, not quite software 2.0 yet, but getting there. And eventually the interface, and this is something, as you probably know, last week, there was a bit of a splash with a Norwegian company called 1X that came out with the Neobot, which is designed to go in the home. And the idea of that bot is that in many cases, you won't have to tell it what you want it to do. It will know what you want to do because it's going to pretty much read your body language. It's going to sort of see, now the demonstration they had was still telerobotically controlled. And when everyone looked at that video, they said, wow, it's just so human-like. And it was, the motions were very human-like and fluid. But the interesting thing was that it sort of showed that it knew what to do based on what the human was doing at that time. And that was getting ready to leave by tying her shoes. And it's like, oh, there's a backpack over here. Put the two together. Maybe, would you like this backpack? Now, that was a teleoperator that was being the empath there, was figuring out what to do. But Berendt is on the record as saying that they are actually working on something like that, that the robot will intuit what it is you would like it to do before you tell it, because it's rather obvious. Now, let me ask you a question, Brian. Your wife comes home in the station wagon, and the back is like full of groceries. She pulls up, opens that thing up. You see her drive in there. You see it open up. You know she just went to the store. Do you have to wait for her to ask you to help her unload the groceries?
So are you asking about me or the kids? Because the kids see that and they know it's time to go to the bathroom or
yes.
head to the basement. So they're conditioned in a slightly different way. But I get what you're saying. My question on that front, though, is how far out is that? And what is actually available today?
It's not available today, but it probably will be available very, very soon when they start coming in the bot. So the indication was they are beginning to see it as like almost an emergent behavior from the training sets that they have with like the earlier bot, the Eve bot, with the expectation that they're going to be moving in that direction. So the bots are going to be getting more and more clever in both workplaces and around the home. Now, the workplace, it's more working the salt mines, right? There's going to be a lot of drudgery in some cases. The bots are doing the exact same thing again and again and again and again. And it's almost like the bot doesn't really have to think about what it needs to do. It's been told what to do, and it does the same thing again and again and again. Unless there's an error and maybe it has to kind of figure something out. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, something kind of went a little bit wrong here. Maybe I need to kind of fix it. For the most part, it's just going to be the same thing again and again. But when you have it in the house, in an environment where the tasks are changing from second to second, and again, if you take it out of the factory and put it into other businesses, you are going to see that what you have to do from second to second is different. Like, if you're working in a McDonald's, you're not always doing the same thing the whole time, right? A worker could be running around doing this and that, and the tasks are varying depending upon what the demand is at the time, versus a production line where it's like the same thing, 8 hours straight. So you would want the bots to be a bit smarter to know that, oh, it's time to do this, it's time to do something else, and then to kind of figure that out. Or, of course, some sort of commands are going to come probably from some central dispatch that says you need it over here now. Please move over to another area and begin to do those tasks.
Now, you've designed robotics systems in the past for manufacturing. You've installed them, configured them, all that. A lot of people say, well, in the factory, they don't need humanoid robots. They need assembly robots. And we say, yes, but you need both. Now, when it comes to a single function robot, this robot welds these 4 points before it moves on. How much does that robot cost, that one stationary welding bot kind of thing, compared to a humanoid bot?
Okay.
That can do everything, just not as quickly.
Okay. So that stationary robot there is going to cost you like a car or a bit more. So depending upon what it is, they could be high 20,000s up to 50,000 or a bit more for the bot. We're not talking about the end of arm tooling. We're not talking about the jigs and the fixturing around there. We're not talking about the safety fencing that goes around there. So as you start to go around, the costs add up.
Or the programming.
The engineering, everything else that goes in there becomes a lot. So the bots themselves are almost a commodity, but everything else, all the dressing and everything else you had to put on there to get it going, that's what really makes automating those cells. Now, they're very good. Basically single purpose bots, specific task bots are not going to go away. They're going to be there. The thing is, there's always sort of a humanoid part of getting these cells to work and to operate. And as we've seen in manufacturing, you're familiar with spot welding cells. There's a part of the spot welding cell where it's being fed, and it's always a human that's feeding the sheet metal. And I keep on hearing people saying, it's like, well, you don't need a humanoid bot that, you could automate it other ways. And I just look at them and say, if it was so easy, they would have done it. Why haven't
50 years ago?
50 years ago, but they haven't figured it out. Now, the other thing regarding commodities is that you remember doing the Cybertruck demo, right? Going through see the line, the production line there?
I didn't get into that, but I've seen it.
Oh, okay. I think you may have seen it. But you go down the line, and one place, that the small triangular piece of window that they put on the front of the Cybertruck, they've got to put a sealant bead on that thing. So you come over to the station where there's a sealant bead, and guess what the glass is? The glass is flat, right? And it's triangular. And all you're doing is you're just putting a little bit of sealant on there, like you'd be putting caulking on there. So you got a caulking gun that's sticking down, it's going around like that. Now, that's like a 2D problem, isn't it? Basically, you're putting something in 2D. It turns out it's a little bit more, it's a 3D, because the nozzle has to be facing in a proper direction as it goes around, because it's got some sort of opening. So it means it's got to rotate as it goes around. And then you might say, and then the nozzle is going to have like a pen up and pen down. So I could imagine that if I was going to design something, and we're talking about a workspace, it's not that big, a piece of glass that's like that, I only need like 4 actuators to be able to do it. It's a 4-axis problem. And I'm looking down there, and there's a FANUC bot. That's a 6-axis FANUC bot that's got a piece of end of arm tooling on there with a sealant that's got an actuator on that spins around. They turned it into a 7-axis problem. And I'm like, why the heck did they turn it into a 7-axis problem? Because it was easier for them to buy a robot off the shelf that's already got the control systems and the programming and everything else they need to be able to go in and do that, as opposed to making a specialized piece of equipment to just go ahead and put the goo on there. That's what it comes down to, is that many
Yeah.
times the customized solution will cost you a lot more than buying what appears to be the over-engineered solution. That's the same with the humanoid bots. The humanoid bots, in many ways, you have way more limbs and way more degrees of freedom than you need for that one task. Okay. But that one task is so unique and so special, it's not worth going to the effort to try to figure out how to automate it. And then when that task changes a little bit, oh, I've got to change all these parameters. But now you have this general purpose bot that can do a lot of things. So there's many tasks where the bot doesn't need to be able to walk. But the bot needs to walk from that task to the next task when it's done with this task. That's why you need it to be able to walk. You need some sort of mobility.
Sure. And because the world was already built around humans, we make the robot human shaped. Now, earlier you were saying you could train the bot, and I've seen some skeptics who don't quite understand that when they say you could show it this task 50 times and then it could perform it with an acceptable error rate. What they forget is that you don't have to train every robot 50 times,
Right.
just one. Just the one. Now, there's a company in Oregon that I'd read was entering production. What was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about agility? Because
Is it agility? Oh, okay. So that they're in Oregon?
Is in Oregon. Yeah, they came out of Oregon State. They're an offshoot of Oregon State.
Do we know? But you can't buy those yet. They're just still trialing.
Those are the ones that we just talked about that are actually being used in the production.
Being used, but can you buy one?
I can't buy one. I think they've had some customers that have sort of bought them, but again, they're using it as a robot as a service right now. So there is one that you can buy. I think there's two that you can buy. One, some universities could buy some from China, from Unitree. They had like this one that's about 5'11", and they have a smaller kind of hobbit-sized one, which I think was it called GR2. I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to remember exactly. There's so many letter acronyms out there, but it's about maybe 4 foot something, and it's $16,000. And you can buy it for home use. Now, it's not clear what it can do. It does have like some very simple fingers. I think 3 fingers on there. It can do a few things, but it's probably one of those that you would have to do a lot of programming yourself. But it's something that would be, a nice party trick to be able to have this little bot going in your house and maybe serving drinks to your friends or something like that. I'm not sure that it would be able to just automatically go up and start doing your laundry or anything like that. That's still a ways away.
No, but as a demo, to have it in your lobby to bring visitors a bottle of water and ask if they need anything.
Asamovo has been around for a while. There's been a lot of little like service bots like that. You can go to Japanese restaurants where they have these little bots that bring these things out. So there are these human scale bots that are very safe and able to do these very simple tasks, but the very general purpose humanoid bots, not there yet. But however, you are close, because part of the announcement that 1X had with Neo is that it's called Neo Beta, which means it's going into a beta program, almost like FSD, and they have a select group of people that will be taking it into their homes. And then they hope next year to be able to broaden that and have even more people be able to get it. And you would purchase the bot, and the price of the bot has not been given, but we're told it's about the price of a car, but not a luxury car. Okay. So not as high as a luxury car. So it might be a bit affordable. So to answer your question, yeah, there are some bots that you can go and buy out there that are going to be very close to the humanoid bots that we're going to be expecting to see in the coming years.
Okay, and then the last thing on this topic, I've got this post here from X, from a gentleman by the name of Elon Musk, just leaving Tesla engineering offices in Palo Alto, mostly good, some bad. The future's going to be wild. There'll be so many bots. What's he talking about?
Well, this is rather interesting. Everyone is trying to read between the lines here, including myself, because this was a reply to someone else that just said, "How's your day going?" Okay. And then the question is the mostly good, mostly bad have something to do about Optimus or not? Because leaving the Palo Alto office or just in general. And the only hint that it has something to do with Optimus is because he says there will be so many robots. Like, oh, that must be on his mind at the point. So what was the good and what was the bad that he may have seen in there? Did it have to do with Optimus? Did it have to do with other things going on there? Again, that's between the lines. And that's why he's saying, assuming he was referring to Optimus, what might it have been? And I would think that he may have gone in there and seen that it's doing lots of things, but right now they haven't really been able to solve the walking problem because there may be something fundamentally wrong with the design that they need to work on that they're going to clean up by the time they do Gen 3. But the interesting thing he says is the future is going to be wild. There will be so many robots. Now, a lot of people think, oh, that means there's going to be tens of thousands of Optimi running around. He may not be talking about how many Optimi there are, but maybe how many different types of robots. So that's one way to interpret what he said there. And I've always felt that Tesla is working on more than just the Optimus bot, because some of the job openings out there kind of hinted at other things. Like they've got this mobile robot group. And everyone keeps on saying, why the bipedal robots? Why the robots have to walk? Why don't you just put wheels on the bots? And, they make more sense in a factory setting and in a warehouse. I'm like, they already exist. They've been around for a long time. Amazon's got almost 750,000 of them right now in their warehouses around there as little Kiva bots. So in some settings, it does make sense to do that. And Tesla has those as well. And the thing is, they have to buy them from all these vendors and everything else. And the thing that a good mobile robot needs to have is it needs to have wheels, it needs to have a good battery pack, and it needs to be able to recharge, it needs to be able to drive itself around autonomously. It sounds like a small Tesla, doesn't it? I mean, everything I'm describing there is like, well, Tesla is basically building things like that. So could you just imagine? It's like, well, they know how to build motors, they know how to build batteries, they know how to do autonomy. Why isn't Tesla thinking about getting into the autonomous robot space here inside of factories? Because they may have their own need and they have their own capabilities. So my feeling is that, yeah, there are going to be a lot of other robots out there like the Star Wars universe, right? Because remember, in Star Wars, there wasn't just C-3PO who was the humanoid, but you also had R2-D2. And so they could be looking at more than just that. And that's a little bit of how I read that. If it's reading between the lines, you can tell me if I'm like, kind of way too between the lines, or what do you think that's a good read?
I don't think there were enough lines to read between. But okay. I think it's a very interesting comment. So, and people don't realize there are already more robots in Amazon warehouses than humans. And that's not even bothering to think of the fact that there are 4 shifts of humans. They're still outnumbered by the robots because the robots are that. I mean, and they need them.
Right.
They need them.
And those robots are able to do the specific tasks they're doing. And they had to do a lot of redesigning of the warehouse. So we keep on saying the world is built around humans. And what they did is they basically rebuilt the world for these specific type of bots, the way they move them around. And actually, the humans can't do the tasks anymore. You have to
not anymore.
But at some point, there's actually parts of the task that the bots can't do that the humans need, and that is just be able to take the right package out of a bin and put it over in a box. So they're still a very humanoid type of thing, which eventually they're going to want to see a humanoid to be able to finish that one, and then the whole warehouse will be automated. But as far as the storage and retrieval, they've turned that into a very complex system, which is very automated, that relies on other aspects of automation, as well as these little bots that basically ferry things around. And these bots, for people who don't know what they look like, they're basically a Roomba on steroids. All right? And they go around and they're able to, they basically pick up what is kind of some shelving on wheels and get underneath it and lift it up and suddenly bring it around and drop it off wherever it needs to be. And they become almost like this automated little conveyor belt over where the packing station is. So the operator turns around and suddenly there's a shelf right there, right with what they need. And they'll have probably some sort of pick the light that's going to indicate where they need to get it from. And they go, oh, there it is. That's the USB connector that the person just connected that I'm pulling out of here and dropping. And as they're doing that, that thing moves away and the next one comes up, turns around the right location. And so they're constantly picking the things off of that. And then that's going right back to where it's supposed to be. So that's why you have so many of those bots, is they're just like little worker ants that are just moving material around nonstop.
And the beauty is, where it's supposed to be doesn't have to be a specific place. Just get it out of the way because we remember where it is because we're a computer. Exactly. And then, of course, once you've got the bots that can pick, then you'll have bots that can load the van. And then, of course, the van will drive itself. Yeah. And then when it gets to your house, you'll have another bot that picks it up, ignores your shipping instructions, doesn't put it in the box in the carport, puts it right on the front porch because that's the Amazon way. Yeah. So I think we've got that all sorted out. Now, the way to think of the warehouse is it's basically like a physical form of random access memory, right?
It's like,
Oh yeah,
it's like
sure.
your packages are your data. They're just kind of out there in these locations, and it doesn't matter where it is. You just grab it where you want. Now we know, like some random access memory, a lot of times you might want to cache and bring things a little bit closer to where they're supposed to be because it's easier for you to access it. Well, they are kind of doing the same thing, realizing, wait, these are the things that are moving really fast. Let's keep them a little bit closer. And the ones that are not so much, we might push them a little bit to the back of the warehouse because it's going to take a little bit longer to do that retrieval. But they'll still do it, and when they know when it comes up, it's like, okay, we'll bring it to the front. So they've got all sorts of ways of figuring out where's the best place to put it back. But it's like that's their secret sauce, no doubt about it. But the first thing is,
And if it
yes, to be able to
costs,
physically do it.
yeah, and if it costs 8 pennies more to retrieve it from farther buried in the warehouse, they can price it in because they'll know.
Yeah.
So guys, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Are you getting a bot, and when, which kind? And keep it PG because I don't need to know that. Everybody else, like, subscribe, do all those things. Huge thanks to Dr. Scott for joining me. Who knows? He may be joining us at Florida Cyberfest. You should apply some peer pressure if you get a chance, because I think he'd be a great addition to our lineup. Everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual. Stay tuned and juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the next one.